What's going on, everybody? Good late morning. Hope you guys are doing well. And obviously, this is a Seattle Seahawks channel, and we think about and talk about Seattle Seahawks things. We talk about right now the draft, potential free agency signings, some trade stuff. We get into all kinds of Seahawks conversations on here, but every now and then I do like to check in on one of our former players and talk a little bit about him because, like I've said, whatever you think of this player at this point in time, and everybody has their own take on how to feel about Russell Wilson now, this is one of our legendary players in franchise history. This is our all-time great quarterback. And when he does something here at the very tail end of his career, it feels like it matters on a more personal level than just whether or not he does X, Y, or Z. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, more on them a little bit later. But yeah, Russell Wilson, been very quiet this offseason, right? Not been a lot of movement on Russell Wilson as a future NFL player. I feel like I haven't heard much of anything about him in the last several months. And then we got this, and this was a kind of a fun conversation topic for a few days there. This is from John Boy, but it was all over the place. I saw it from Dove Kleiman as well. He took an at-bat for the Savannah Bananas at Yankee Stadium. Obviously, Russell Wilson, former baseball player, flirted with the idea of playing in the MLB at one point. So takes an at-bat for the Savannah Bananas, and, well, you can see what people may have thought when they saw this video. He's looking very chunky, and he's looking like someone that is not particularly invested in continuing his NFL career. Now, that was kind of the perception that a lot of people had when they saw this video. One thing I want to say, it's pretty common for athletes to get out of shape in the off season. This might be a little bit extreme. This might be a little bit how should I put this? Troubling. Like, this might be a little bit more than you would like even for a guy in the middle of the off season but he's not on a team. And if you like I'm a fan, or I used to be a big fan of basketball. I'm very used to players, even great players, getting very overweight in the off season and then playing themselves into shape during the late part of the off season and even the regular season. So I don't look at this and go, oh, he's definitely done, or even necessarily think there's anything to really go over the top making fun of him here. I know that people did make fun of him, and look, if Russell Wilson has done one thing over the last 4 seasons or 4 years of his life, it's get people to laugh at him. Everything he does, even sometimes the stuff that's kind of good, ends up making people laugh. So you had this a few days ago, and then after the draft was over, this was yesterday afternoon, we finally got some degree of free agency interest from somebody on Russell Wilson. We had this from Rosenblatt on X, and this has been retweeted by many other credible sources. The Jets had Russell Wilson in for a visit and are considering him as an option to be the backup quarterback behind Geno Smith. So finally, I think for the first time this offseason, there's been a team that has actually been a little bit interested in acquiring Russell Wilson's services. But the thing that cannot help jump out to me here is that presumably they are signing him to be a backup quarterback, and I just can't help but have some questions here. If you like sports, the best way to make them better and more exciting is using Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks, all you got to do is pick more or less on your favorite players' projections and build lineups with a few taps. It's the daily fantasy stuff, but it's made super easy over there. Whatever sport you're into, give it a shot. And right now, Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All you have to do is use promo code HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far. It makes this daily fantasy thing very easy, and it makes watching the games way more exciting. Be sure to check out the social feeds feature so you can share lineups with your friends and tail partners, or even fade their picks. Right now, Prize Picks is offering odds on the NFL draft. You have who's going to go where, what each team is going to do, how many of each position is going to go in each round, and so on and so on. Get on over to Prize Picks. Take advantage of that. So download Prize Picks today, America's #1 sports app, and remember to use the promo code HMA. And remember, always gamble responsibly. So, a couple of different elements at play here with this possibility. First of all, the thing that I've talked about quite a bit on, well, I don't want to say quite a bit, but the thing I've talked about on this channel previously, and something that I've talked about on my SI articles for Seahawks on SI, is this idea that as Seahawks fans, what Russell Wilson has done over the last 4 seasons has been, we had fun with it for a couple of years there because the Seahawks were materially benefiting from it because of the Denver draft pick situation. But once you got past that and you get into the fact that he's like lost his 9 or 10 last starts or whatever, and he's legitimately been one of the least valuable quarterbacks in the league for, we're coming up on half a decade here in terms of the harm he's done to the teams he's been on. It's tough. Because even if you don't like him personally, even if you have issues with the ways he's conducted himself in recent years, and I think that is completely justified, this is still a legendary Seahawks player. This is a guy who may go into the Hall of Fame. This is a guy who may get his number retired, who may end up in the Ring of Honor. I don't know exactly what kind of accolades we're talking about here. I do think it's worth noting that he did rub people the wrong way on his way out of Seattle, and for all we know, that's going to damage his ability to really be honored by the franchise. But I say this of the people in this organization, and I say this of the fan base as well. Once he's retired, I think a lot of that negativity goes away, and we just remember him as a guy who was our starting quarterback for 10 years and won a Super Bowl as a starter and made a bunch of Pro Bowls and had a lot of really good seasons and was and is still the greatest quarterback we've ever had overall. And I don't know if he makes the Hall of Fame at this point. He's certainly done a lot over the last few years to try to play his way out of it. I don't know if playing your way out of the Hall of Fame is a real thing or not, but if it is, Russell Wilson is doing it better than any other player I've ever seen, but he still might make it. I don't know what's going to happen there. I'll it'll be easier to talk about that once it's over, but what happened last year and what is now maybe happening this year, and we'll see if anything comes of this. This could easily be nothing. Yeah, it's just getting worse because the thing is, Russell Wilson at one point in time was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was never the best quarterback in the league. He was never the league MVP. He never even got an MVP vote. But there were times where he was probably the second best quarterback in the league, and there were times where he was a top 5 quarterback in the league too. So he was a legitimate elite quarterback here. And to see him basically scrounge around just for playing time these last 2 years, because look, when Russell Wilson went to Denver, there was an expectation that team would be very good. They weren't, mostly because Russell Wilson was really bad, but that team had expectations of being good. When he went to Pittsburgh, that team had an expectation of being good, and there was a moment where they looked like they were, and then they ended up being average, but that was a situation where you could feasibly go, okay, good things can happen here. But then you go to the Giants, one of the worst teams in the league, a team that had no higher aspirations for 2025, and now you're thinking about going to the Jets. Like, that is kind of sad, I think, because that's the kind of thing that somebody like a Jameis Winston or a Tyrod Taylor should be doing. Not a former great, not somebody who used to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So when I look at this, it just really kind of just feels like it's not just that he wants to continue to play, continue to win, continue to compete. It feels like he kind of cut those last two things off. He doesn't care about winning, doesn't even care about competing, and arguably now doesn't even care about playing. He just wants to be in the league. And that should be beneath him. I believe that. I don't think it's beneath a Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was a starting quarterback for a long time, but I don't think he ever even made a Pro Bowl until last year. He was not an elite quarterback. He was a good starter. He was like Vinny Testaverde, and he segued into being a career backup that bounced around the league and Didn't really care if he played, didn't really care if the teams he were on were any good. He just bounced around. And that kind of made sense because it was Joe Flacco. But Russell Wilson, this should be beneath him. And as a Seahawks fan, watching him kind of stoop to this level is really not, it's really not fun. And I know that Russell Wilson wants to continue his career. And look, I don't know if Russell Wilson thinks that he's competing for a backup job here. He might be coming in thinking he's going to win the starting job from Geno Smith. And in fairness, it's not like he's going to back up Josh Allen. It's not like he's going to back up Joe Burrow. Geno Smith is not a entrenched in concrete starter. And even if he is, which, I mean, I think that Geno Smith is probably going to do pretty well for the Jets, honestly, it is at least conceivable that he doesn't keep that job for all 17 games. Like, the Jets are probably going to not be very good, and there is a world where the Jets end up going to the backup quarterback at some point. So he is putting himself in a position where he could eventually start some games. But like I just said, the Jets are not going to be good this year. There's no aspiration, I think, of the Jets being particularly great, just like the Giants last year. I mean, crazy stuff happens, but I don't think anybody's really expecting it. So it's just another thing where it's like, now you're not even trying to start. You're just trying to get a roster spot, and that should be beneath him. Like, think about Tom Brady at the end of his career. After that last year in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady probably could have, like, slummed it on a bad team to get a starting job. He could have found some random team that didn't have a quarterback and would just like the publicity of having Tom Brady as their starter for a year. He could have gone, look, I know I'm not that great a quarterback anymore, but I can still start. I can still play. Let me start for you for a year. You'll sell more tickets. You'll get media attention. And it'll be better than, you know, some random Tyrod Taylor type at least. But he didn't do that because that was beneath him. And this kind of stuff, being a backup on a bad team behind a quarterback that is not at this point a true franchise quarterback, should be beneath Russell Wilson. And again, maybe Russell Wilson views things differently. Maybe he's coming in thinking, I'm going to take that starting job. And I guess it's not impossible. But I also think that when you look at how bad Wilson was last year, he had one really good game, and then everything else was pretty much atrocious. And like even at the end of the year when Jackson Dart would get hurt and Wilson would go in, every time that happened, Wilson just embarrassed himself. And you would think that would be like a pretty strong indicator that it's time to hang him up. But it's not surprising that Wilson is kind of delusional about what he is as a player right now, because he's always been kind of delusional in the sense that he doesn't allow himself to think negatively. And that can be a great thing sometimes, but it can also be a very bad thing. And right now it looks like it's being a very bad thing for Russell Wilson to be this positive, because he can't see that he is kind of, in a way, debasing himself. He is kind of, I don't want to say undoing the good things he did in his career, but he is kind of casting himself in a worse light. People are not going to remember how good he was if he keeps this up, because he's going to spend such an extended period of time as whatever this is. All right, so wanted to talk a little bit about this. Would be kind of fun if we saw our two former starting quarterbacks for the Jets, but I'm really hoping that Russell Wilson ends up retiring, and I don't even know why he'd want to be a backup quarterback anyway, by the way. Like, if he's being signed as a backup and he knows that, even if it's in a situation where he could feasibly end up getting starts eventually, I don't know why that would intrigue him, because it might not happen, and then you're just sitting on the bench for 17 games doing nothing. Like, don't you have better things to do? You got a family, you've got all that money, you do commercials, you can probably do some acting, you can maybe get in the booth. Like there is stuff that Russell Wilson can do outside of football. This is not a situation where he's just going to have to sit at home for the rest of his life with nothing to do. So I don't know why he wouldn't look at that and go, that's better than just sitting on the bench behind Geno Smith for 17 games potentially. Okay, so just wanted to get into that a little bit. I understand that it's not really, it has nothing to do with the Seahawks, right? whatever the Jets do this year, whatever Wilson does this year, it has no effect on us. But I feel like it kind of does have an effect on us as fans because, again, this is just beneath him. This should be beneath a player like Russell Wilson, and I'm personally hoping that it doesn't happen just because I don't want to see this continue to get worse. All right, go Hawks. See you guys later. Let me know what you think.